Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk, and there's some news this morning that I was like, yes, people finally agree with my viewpoint on this EV push we're going through. I've said for a while that there is a time and place for EVs. There definitely is people that really want them. They do work in certain environments. I'm totally down with that. But this rush, this mad rush to go EV only, is complete bull. And I'm so happy to see that my friends at Toyota have went through some and crunched the details. They've been taking a lot of flack lately on their overall strategy for EVs, and it's wrong. The critics are wrong. Toyota is right, and I'm going to get this video because you can tell a little fired up this morning about this topic. And I just, again, we all want clean air, and there should be multiple ways to get clean air, but slow down. Stop saying by this year, this is going to happen. It's not the case. I go around this country. I talk to fans all over this country, and they all tell me, "Hey, if I gotta go EV, I'll go plug in, or give me more options, or I don't want to go EV." And it just seems like we're being forced in the situation. And I understand that my EV advocate friends are going to be mad at me. They're firing off comments. We're not being forced. We're not doing this, whatever. And I said it doesn't matter because that's a feeling going on in this community, in the car community, that you're being forced into EVs. That is wrong. So let's go to add to the stream here. I'm going to go into the news story. So it's from autonews.com. It says Toyota EV only extremist. Science says you're wrong. Fantastic. Finally, somebody stands up to these people and says, you know what? Your criticism is flat out garbage. And in this case, we have a gentleman here. You can see this image on the screen. Toyota chief scientist Gil Bradt. And what he did was he's part of the Toyota Research Institute. They look at like big picture stuff. They do a lot of big thinking about not only about vehicles, but how they're going to power them, where the trends going, what's going on. And they do a lot of research into overall, like I said, in the market. So Gil sits down, and Gil's a practical guy. Look at this guy. He's like me. He's a practical guy. And he's going, everybody's talking about EVs. And he said, well, can we even build all these EVs that they want to target? And that was a great question, a fantastic question. So he insists that the EV only strategies, all the rage in some corners, fall short. They're not gonna make a dent when it comes to global emissions. It's not going to happen, and it's not for the reason you think. Again, this is a very practical reason, and I love the fact he went very practical. And so, if you look at these conversations or this graph, this is the best way to describe this graph. So, we all want clean emissions, right? We want clean air. Like, look at this photo here. This is Pittsburgh photo smog in 1970s. I remember this because I remember watching a Monday Night Football game with the Steelers playing, and they showed a picture of 1970s Pittsburgh on Three River Stadium and today's Pittsburgh, which is, I think it was in this image group here, maybe over here. Today's Pittsburgh, where you actually can see across the river. You can actually see three rivers. Amazing. So nobody wants to go back to these days, right? We don't want to go back to China. Remember the Beijing games that built that nest egg looking thing? You couldn't even see it. They had so much smog going on. Nobody wants that. So yes, we want clean air. But he said, look, there should be a multi-pronged approach to clean air. Like I said, I talked to you guys many times in comments places elsewhere. You're like, I want V8 only, or I want if I have to go EV, give me a hybrid, give me a plug-in hybrid version so I can get some free basic electricity driving around. And I can get some just gas. I said free. I know it's not free. Electricity rates are different everywhere you go, but comparison of electricity rates per mile versus the gas per mile, it's almost free how cheap it is, especially my area. It's like 16 cents per kilowatt hour. So Toyota's chief scientist, Gil Bradt, says, he argues that with lithium as scarce as it is, this is the topic that nobody wants to talk about. I don't know why. Lithium is a very scarce resource, and you actually cause environmental damage by mining this resource. Now, the idea here is the more you drive the EV, the more you overcome the environmental damage. But then people don't seem to want to drive EVs very far because they have range anxiety. So it creates this gigantic irony going on the EVs. And so you need to drive EVs to get them to be carbon neutral from when they were produced, because they always create more emissions than when it first started. So he says automakers can reduce carbon emissions more quickly through a multi-pronged approach to electrification that includes widespread development of hybrids rather than focus exclusively on fully electric vehicles. That's very smart because, and I'll show you the data here, is that you have these people going, I'm full electric. And it's like the overall marketplace says, I don't want full electric. I mean, the overall marketplace. Yes, there are cases. I just read a story in Jalopnik. This guy lives in downtown Los Angeles, has an apartment, and he's going EVs for everything. Well, he's a single guy with no family, no kids, living in an apartment in LA. Fine, makes sense to me. I was just in Florida with my parents. They in their little community of retirees, lots of EVs. I saw VWs, I saw the Teslas, I saw the new VW, not the Kia EV6. They drive 2 miles a day. They're going to do much better with that for their lifestyle, even though they are creating more environmental damage than they would a gas vehicle because they're old. They don't want to use gas pumps. They just want to plug it in and drive and drive that and have no emissions and that kind of stuff. Anyways, his math acts as a rebuttal to those proposing bans on new vehicles that use any gasoline or diesel at all in the mission to slow down global climate change. So let's go into this because I found it, again, I'm a little fired up this morning, but it's very fascinating. So he said he's got 3 scenarios here. He goes, all right, scenario number 1. So let's start with scenario number 1, the scenario on the left. It says, let's say we're going to replace the Pratt's model starts by hypothesizing, a fleet of 100 traditional internal combustion engine vehicles with an average emissions of 250 grams of carbon dioxide per kilometer traveled. So if you do only gas, you're using a 250 grams of kilowatts or kilometers traveled for 100 traditional combustion engines. Okay, so let's say you don't want to do that. You want to be electric. So next, it assumes a limited amount of lithium, which we know from other stories, that battery prices are growing, that vehicles are getting more expensive. We had what the Ford Lightning had 2 different price increases because lithium is expensive. It's expensive to mine. It's expensive to get. So if you have limited supply, everybody's building more EVs. Guess what? Supply and demand, price goes up. So he says if we have a limited amount of lithium, which is what global forecasts are saying. I know we saw there's new lithium mine here and there, new deposits, things like that come up, but overall, there's a limited amount of lithium. It's enough to make 100 kilowatt hours of batteries. Okay, if that were deployed in a single 100 kilowatt battery, it could support 1 fully electric vehicle on an order of a top grade Tesla. In that case, the fleet of say 100. So you're doing hypotheses here. So if you're able to have enough lithium to make out of 100 vehicles, and you're going to multiply this by 100 million, you'd basically have this. You'd have this chart, right? So this one little chart. So if that were deployed in a single 100 kilowatt battery hour pack, you would have average fleet emissions would drop 248.5 grams per kilometer. So if you did all electric, used up every supply of lithium we have on the planet, you're just going to improve the overall emissions, carbon dioxide, by 1.5. Okay. By contrast, if you spread that limited amount of lithium supply among enough 1.1 kilowatt batteries, so if you take that lithium and you put it in smaller batteries, so 100 kilowatt hours, the battery pack, that'd be the low range Ford Lightning that gets 230 miles of range. I think it's right around 100. The 130 kilowatt hour battery pack gets 300 miles of range on a good sunny day. The GMC Hummer EV, the truck, has a 212 kilowatt hour battery. I was on a GMC call the other day, and they're like, they can build like 2 Silverado EVs for every Hummer they build because that Hummer's got such a big battery, and they're using a limited supply of lithium. So it's really a gigantic waste of resources, really. Now, by contrast, if you spread it around, again, the 1.1 kilowatt hour batteries for 90 traditional hybrids. So if you do if you're not going to go fully electric and you go, let's just spread that supply around the bunch of hybrids, the fleet would have 90 hybrids and 10 traditional combustion cars. So you have a much better mix of the resources. You're using resources more smartly. In this scenario, the average fleet emissions plunges at 205 grams per kilometer. So what he's saying here is, look, we have a limited supply of lithium, and you guys keep saying you want to go EV only, EV only, EV only, but we don't have the resources to do that. So why are we doing this? Why not just take the limited supply and apply that across a range of fleet? We come up with much better solutions for improving air quality, if that's our goal. And that's EV goal. And this, I want to go to the bottom because this is very fascinating. So Pratt realized this. He was inspired to delve into the battery question by his family's experience. He owned a Tesla Model X. That's what I love about Toyota. Toyota will buy the brands, the people will drive the things, they just get really practical. And this is why we get along so well. The vehicle has an impressive 300-mile range, but his wife typically drives at less than 30 miles a day. Remember the scenario in Florida? Remember the scenario of the guy in the apartment in California? So these guys have this massive range, but they're not using it. That means 90% of the battery is dead weight because they're not using it. So it's an incredible waste of materials. So imagine that Model X. If we took and made that a hybrid rather than fully electric, we could actually share that amount of lithium amongst a variety of vehicles and meet our goals a little bit better. And he says, I think what's needed is a little bit more frankness from the OEMs, both to the public and to the policymakers. That is ideal. He also pointed out in his this presentation he gave out was that there's a limited supply of other things like nickel and magnesium. So aside from crimping the supply of EVs, these material shortages also likely push up battery costs. And higher sticker prices, in turn, will likely tamp down consumer demand for EVs. Well, hello, why is that common sense not being shared elsewhere? So limited supply, you use them in inefficient ways, you don't spread it around, you increase prices of the vehicles that go out, and you have consumers going, man, why would I go buy that? Was it that Lightning I had was, it was $90,000. I mean, it was something like $90,000 for this Ford Lightning Platinum. Why would I go buy a $90,000 Ford Lightning Platinum when I can go buy a Ford M50 Lightning or Ford M50 Platinum and save 20 grand? I mean, why wouldn't I do that? Why? So you want me to go EVs, but you're putting this really big high price point on it, and you're going to say, hey, it's going to cost you a lot to replace the battery and replace things because we have a limited supply of lithium. So why are you doing that? And what I find fascinating about this kind of stuff, and this is, I've talked about this a few times. So let's say, and I know people are going to argue about this in the comments, but look, the metric right now globally is CO2 emissions. That is the global metric for all this kind of stuff. It's just what it is. Argue about science later. That's what it is. So according to the EPA, and I love going to the EPA, getting the data just from them, the carbon monoxide, CO2 pollution, outdoor air. They have these little charts. They're showing stuff. But what's interesting is you click into the details on trends. This was fascinating. Again, this is from the EPA, and they're using the EPA, state, tribal, and local agencies to collect this data and ensure CO2 remains at levels to protect public health and the environment. Look, remember Pittsburgh again? Nobody wants Pittsburgh, okay? Makes sense. So let me close some of these tabs. But he says, nationally, average CO2 concentrations have decreased substantially over the years. So our air quality has improved dramatically. And, well, hello, I'm going back to this picture again. We can see it. We can literally see that CO2 emissions have gone down dramatically. So this charts below show national and regional trends in CO2 concentrations. So let's go down. National trends. CO air quality. So they started measuring this in the 1980s. Pittsburgh photo, 1970s. Okay, same time period. So you can see it's an 87% decrease in the national average of of bad air has gotten better. We have dramatically improved air quality, and and we have many different industries like shipping and airplanes and trains to even get even further making benefits to air quality. And looking at this as those other places go, we're not just talking about vehicles and tailpipe emissions. As those other bigger industries keep getting more and more green, because we all want green. We all want green skies. I fish, I hunt, I golf. I want green grass and clear skies. So we are already seeing a massive improvement in air quality. It's indisputable. The EPA is saying air quality has gotten dramatically better. And you're saying, okay, well, what's going on with the regional? Well, what's going on over here? Air quality. Air quality national summary. So let's look at air quality trends. Percentage change in air quality. So carbon dioxide has improved dramatically over the years in percentage. Lead has gotten better. Nitrous dioxide, ozone's improved. Remember the ozone had a big hole in it? And we did some changes to the way the spray cans worked and the ozone hole was filled. PM, particulate matter emissions. Sulfur dioxide has all gotten better. But if you look at emissions trends, carbon dioxide is going down. It's getting better. Nitrous oxide going down. Everything's getting a little bit better. And look at comparison of growth areas and emissions. This chart is really fascinating. So if you look at annual emissions estimates are used as indicator of effectiveness of other programs. The graph below shows between 1980 and 2021, gross domestic product increased 187%. So we're creating more product. Industry is doing much more. Vehicles traveled increased 111%. So vehicles are driving further. Energy consumption increased 25%. We're using more energy. Population grew by 46%. So we have more people driving more distances, using more energy, building more stuff. And during the same time period, the total emissions of 6 principal air pollutants dropped by 73%. So even though we have more people, we have more traffic, we have more production, and we have more energy usage, we have seen air pollution improve by 73%. And Pittsburgh, hello, we can see this. And the graph also shows that CO2 emissions in 2020 are the same levels they were in 1980. Now think about that. The graph also shows that CO2 emissions in 2020 were back to the same level as they were in 1980. Now, we didn't drive very much. It was 2020 was COVID. I understand that there's going to be some arguments there with the emissions, what happened during COVID, and people didn't drive. You know, I get that. But we can get back there, right? So if we just take semis, for example, and we figure out ways to make semis, say, more efficient, right? So a lot of semis these days get, what's the deal? My friend's a semi-truck driver. It was like in the single digits of fuel economy, right? So these things get like 2-3 miles per gallon. If we can figure out to make semis more efficient and use a hybrid technology and not use the Tesla semi EV hauling a bag of chips around, we actually come up with real solutions. Like, for example, Toyota is doing a hydrogen fuel cell for Kenworth semis. If we figure out solutions with that, we can see a dramatic decrease in overall air quality back to 1980s and back to even further, right? So, and I know my friends at Diesel Tech Forum are gonna be like, no, Tim, we're seeing it. Diesel technology is getting even more cleaner. We now have more renewable diesel. It's being sold in a commercial operation for many cities in California, because as we know, heavy duty trucks and semis cannot run an EV. It just, they don't work. The physics don't work. And so, yes, Tesla semi aside, but they just don't work. And so what they did instead was they came up with a renewable diesel that was emitting almost no pollution, and they put it in their diesel engines without doing any modifications to the truck at all. And they're getting better air quality. They actually they meet the California Air Resource Board requirements for air quality in those California cities. It's a big deal. It should be reported on a lot, and it's not, which is sad. But if we can get renewable fuels, Porsche, however you say it, is working on renewable fuel program for the gasoline. So they're going to do that as well. So you have these brands that are saying, hey, you know, we can make these engines more efficient, right? For example, a next generation of V8 engines from General Motors, there's a couple different suppliers that are saying, you know, we can still make the V8 engine more efficient. They can still make that be more efficient and use less pollutions. We've seen through diesels. Remember, diesel came out in 2007. They started doing, you know, their EPA stuff to them. But, you know, now go get a 2023 diesel, like I had the Silverado outside, or go get a 2023 heavy duty diesel, and they're dramatically better. I mean, people are like, I'm going to delete all this stuff immediately. And hey, that's on you. I'm a public figure. I can't do that because I don't get arrested and get fined, all that kind of stuff, or, you know, EPA, please come after me. But, you know, the standard diesel has gotten a lot better in pollution. Trucks have gotten a lot more efficient. Remember 1980s diesels and the fuel economy you'd get and the pollution you put out versus today's diesels, a little bit better fuel economy, less pollutions. I mean, that makes a big difference. Remember, there was a video I did, and I'm linked to that above. I talked to Ford Super Duty engineer about diesel production. He's been in the business since 1980. He was talking about how much they've improved that in like 30, 40 years and how dramatically different it is these days with their diesels. So that's a big deal right there too. So, you know, from my aspect, we don't have to go all EV. We don't have to. There's other solutions. Give me a plug-in hybrid. Give me a hybrid. Give me you know, you guys want it? Let's go a diesel hybrid. Let's go a hydrogen fuel cell that I can just go to the gas station. I'll have gas, diesel, hydrogen, fill up. Give me a variety. I am in all of the above approach. I will take all these different approaches, and thank goodness Toyota is finally fighting back against these unfair critics who are like, they're like, oh, Toyota's dragging their feet in EV technology. Who came out with the Prius, folks? Who's working on EVs for years? Who knows what hybrids work? They know how plug-in hybrid works. Who's the global automaker, largest global automaker? Toyota is. They've been doing this stuff for years, and it's just complete garbage, and it just irritates me. And so, namaste. I got a little fired up today. Sorry I didn't make a 20-minute video, but this stuff just irritates me, and I'm so, like I said, I'm so happy Toyota actually put this out there and put the research out there. And yes, if we have a limited supply, it's more democratic, more fair to share that supply across many vehicles. And I think common sense and having frank conversations agrees with that viewpoint. I think this bombastic, it's a one-size-fits-all EV-only plan is wrong. It's hurtful. It destroys the marketplace, and it turns off consumers from a technology that could work for a lot of people. It really could. It's an alternative fuel choice for your vehicle. And, you know, we all want better fuel economy. We all want clean air. We want clean skies. Let's do all the above. You know, let's make that work. All right, for more things I'm going to rant about, or things I'm talking about, check the videos over here. Website down below, pickuptrucktalk.com. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you down the road.